next featured reader before we do the open mic is Allyson Whipple. She is so near and dear to the Malvern family, so we're really happy to be able to feature her here today. So Allyson Whipple is not the kind of person you want to mess with because she has a black belt in Kung Fu, so please note that. She has an MA in English, and her chapbook, which is actually available here tonight, right over here on the Ice Cream Social Cool Pics table. We're Smaller Than We Think We Are was published in 2013. She is currently studying poetry in the UT El Paso online MFA program. Allyson teaches at Austin Community College and co-edits the Texas Poetry Calendar. Her favorite ice cream flavor is pistachio.
Whenever I read, I like to usually start with something by someone else that means a lot to me. So this is my favorite Sandra Cisneros poem, and it is called Love Poem for a Non-Believer. Because I miss you, I run my hand along the flat of my thigh, curve of the hip, mango of the ass. Imagine it, your hand across the thrum of ribs, arpeggio of the breasts, collarbones you adore that I don't. My neck is thin, you could cup it with one hand, yank the life from me if you wanted. I've cut my hair, you can't tug my hair anymore, a jet of black through the fingers now. Your hands are cool along the jaw, skin of the eyelids, nape of the neck soft as a mouth. And when we open like apples, split each other in half and have seen the heart of the heart of the heart, that part you don't, I don't show anyone the part we want to reel back as soon as it is revealed like silk, flag, or the prayer call of a Mohammed, we won't have a word for this except, perhaps, religion. So I'm going to do 3 poems from my chapbook, which is for sale here, hint, hint. And then I'm going to read mostly new stuff, but there are a couple of poems here that I still feel very fondly about. So this is back before I got to edit the Texas Poetry Calendar. This is the first poem of mine that got in. It is, excuse me, it is called Traversing Houston by Bus. Squares are the only geometry that made sense to me. Graph paper, the only part of math class I liked. Wasting time filling in the spaces with pencil, going darker and darker, making welts on the other side of the page, creating designs rather than correct answers. Maybe if I hadn't been so intent on filling in the blanks, if I had paid attention to circles and ovals, to circumference, I wouldn't get so disoriented here, wouldn't be so dizzy. Maybe if I had been receptive to soft lines and curves, I wouldn't be so dependent on right angles for navigation. Maybe I'd be able to make sense of the pulse, the unstructured sky, the arterial overpasses. This city loops around a spoke of veined highways, overlapping asphalt, and a cracking concrete center, which I pass over, under, around, through, again and again, unable to find the heart. So once I had a very old Honda, and the air conditioning didn't work, and the windows didn't work, and then I got heat stroke. And so that was the point I had to admit I had to get rid of this car, because the transmission also needed a lot of work. But I loved this car very much, and I was very sad to give it up. So this is called Love Song to a 94 Honda. Ike, whose smiling condescension is not to be trusted, tells me she has 6 months left to live. So I probably shouldn't be pushing her up to 90, at least not if I have any hope of prolonging her time. But the sky is so open on the Carless Freeway, and she doesn't complain. She's so content, I can't even feel her sickness, the rusting and rotting of her interior. So I press the accelerator. She shifts, smooth as ever. The road takes us up over the sun-baked city. This last one I'll do. I like rules, I like order and structure, and I just decided, make a whole aesthetic out of that, I guess. So this is the first rules poem I ever wrote. It's called Rules for Eating on the Road. Drink the free coffee first. A fresh lemon always comes in handy. Hunger can be staved off. Thirst cannot. Lust is somewhere in the middle. You will always want to order room service, even if you are full, even if a slice of toast costs $5. You will always have a hangover, even if you only imbibe water. Your traveling companions will only want to stop at places that serve grease. Forgive them, they know not what they do. Red wine tastes better when consumed in solitude. This is another rules poem, and it's really the only sort of kung fu poem I have. There came a point where I had to reconcile that my hobby involved getting hit, and I really didn't like getting hit, but I really like training. So this came out of that. Rules for taking a punch. You need to let yourself get hit a few times so you can see it's not so bad, or you can see how bad it really is. No amount of padding will save you, nor will learning how to fall, roll, receive impact. All that does is lessen the damage, but no matter how strong you become, you'll still feel it. Don't close your eyes. Let it happen. Accept your fate. This would be the part of the poem where I tell you that getting punched is a metaphor for whatever you're surviving, but you probably already knew that, didn't you? This is an ekphrastic piece that comes from a sculpture called For the Love of God, which is a human skull that is just completely encrusted in diamonds, and it's amazing. And so this is called Infinite Jest. Gums dry out and rot, but your teeth endure like stones. Empty eye sockets glisten with jewels. Your voice would be full of money if it still had a tongue. Yorick, are you grateful for the hands, for the tools that made you more valuable than you ever were alive? Poor Yorick, where is your God, your prayers, your hymns, your flashes of reverence? So I feel like everybody I know has seen the Marfa Lights, and I've been out to Marfa more than once and have failed to see them, and this is just a real sore spot in my life. This is actually from my friend Melanie, who is here, because she has put up with these horrible cold nights, like waiting out in the middle of nowhere with me. It's called Waiting on the Marfa Lights. The man behind us says all you need to do is stare out into the desert, as though apparition is a trick of meditation. Perhaps if we didn't keep coming out in winter, we would be more faithful. I could see waiting out an entire summer night with a bottle of wine to sweeten my devotion. Tomorrow morning, we'll drive back to the city. I have not yet given my life to the desert. So I am in an MFA program, and I'm really happy about that. You go to enough poetry festivals and people are like, oh, are you in a program yet? And you know they're talking about an MFA, but sometimes it's like, are you asking me if I've joined AA yet? So this is the first poem I wrote as part of my MFA. While I was trying to avoid falling in love, a coyote loped down the street at dawn, and my heart stuttered in a fear probably unfounded but present anyway. The muted beast never acknowledged my presence, its legs propelling through the intersection. My dog strained to give chase, fulfill the terrier imperative, all 20 pounds of muscle and instinct, straining against the leash, working to break my grip and pursue the hurried creature, to overtake the passing force. As I dug my heels into the lawn, steadfast in anxiety, I could feel all of my senses tuned to the glimpse of wilderness breaking through my desire for order. This one, I've read this here at open mics before, but I'm going to read it again, because I like it a lot. This one was a challenge. I was doing a poetry fundraiser, and someone, my friend Dale King, donated a good amount of money to my campaign, so I told him, you can pick what I'm going to write for the last day. And he said, write a poem to inspire someone to finish a manuscript. Okay, I don't know how to do that. So this is another rules poem, and it's called Rules for Finishing a Manuscript. The empty page only looks overwhelming because it is full of potential energy. You are storing old notebooks of words that went nowhere. Burn them, use the ash, to fertilize your garden. You must be like the snake shedding old skin, leaving it behind to decay. You must let go of what your family will think, which is more difficult than burning your old work. If you believe your doubters are right, they have already won. You must be like the magnolia tree, unashamed to take up space. Ritual helps, but routine can suffocate. Every poet needs a different proportion of chaos and order. Tinker with a clean closet or mail left out on the table. Keep track of your finances even if you don't want to know. Ignorance is the worst form of blockage, and denial the second. You must be honest with yourself even when you are lying on the page. You must be as patient and persistent as the ivy that winds its way along a chain link fence. You do not need a room of your own, or the perfect chair, or expensive pens. Remember that your work is everywhere. Write drafts in flour spilled on the countertop, in fogged windows, in toothpaste on the bathroom sink. You must be like the blue jay who flies off with a pecan, braces it between fence posts, and slams his beak into the shell to free the meat within. So this one, I wanted to read like a lot of happy poems tonight, and then I realized I don't have a lot of happy poems. I thought I did, apparently not. But this one at least is an optimistic poem. And it is written after Paul Allen from his collection Ground Forces, which is wonderful, and everyone should read it. And it's called Come Into the World Like That. You can't grow up spending summers in suburbia reading about Narnia, Neverland, and Mount Olympus without wondering whether you belong in reality. Weekends on the lake at your grandmother's cottage, you pretend you're really at the ocean because you've never heard of a freshwater mermaid. You're too young to notice that adults pretend too, that family is easy, that this is the life. You're too young to notice how they avoid eye contact, speak in evasive tones, or don't speak at all. When February, when home feels as frayed as your last nerve, the Texas sunset spends a week reminding you that you found something, that you write love poems for a city, that even though you are lost, you have an anchor in the shine of the river in your tiny overgrown yard. You still haven't tailored life to the proportions of your imagination, but your supplies are scattered around the house and your heart waits for desert mermaids. I'm going to do one more poem, and this is another poem that I just love. I have a sort of like an ambivalent appreciation for Frank O'Hara, but this poem delights me. So this is Frank O'Hara's My Heart. I'm not going to cry all the time, nor shall I laugh all the time. I don't prefer one strain to another. I'd have the immediacy of a bad movie, not just a sleeper, but also the big, overproduced first-run kind. I want to be at least as alive as the vulgar. And if some aficionado of my mess says, that's not like Frank, all to the good. I don't wear brown and gray suits all the time, do I? No. I wear work shirts to the opera often. I want my feet to be bare, I want my face to be shaven, and my heart. You can't plan on the heart, but the better part of it. My poetry is open. Thank you.